In the bustling port city of Busan, South Korea, amidst the backdrop of war and a nation in the process of rebuilding itself from the ashes, a young and determined man named Lee Byung-chul quietly set the foundation of what would one day become a global tech powerhouse. The year was 1938. At that time, few could have imagined that the humble trading company he founded would evolve into a multi-industry conglomerate, recognized today as one of the defining forces of global innovation. But this is the secret story of how Samsung was created, a tale of vision, risk, resilience, and remarkable transformation spanning nearly a century. The roots of Samsung are grounded not in microchips or smartphones, but in the simpler commerce of dried fish, locally grown vegetables, and groceries. Lee Byung-chul was the son of a prosperous landowner in the Gyeongsang province. Educated in Japanese institutions at a time when Japan occupied Korea, Lee was inspired by the possibilities of business and determined to carve out his own legacy after returning home. By the late 1930s, Lee found his dreams colliding with the reality of a young country struggling to find its place in a world racked by change. South Korea was not yet an independent nation, and opportunities for entrepreneurship were both scarce and fraught with risk. Undeterred, Lee Byung-chul began his venture with just around 40 employees in a small office in Sudong, now known as Ingyodong in Daegu. The name he chose, Samsung, was carefully considered. In Korean, Sam means three and Sung means stars. To Lee, the three stars represented something big, numerous, and powerful. He picked the name as an omen of greatness, a reflection of his ambitions for the company to shine bright, last forever, and become mighty. In those earliest days, Samsung Trading Company served as a supplier of dried seafood, locally grown vegetables, and various basic goods. Their markets extended throughout Korea and even into parts of China. It was an era of scarcity and instability, but Samsung's commitment to reliability and customer service quickly earned the company a solid reputation. Yet, Lee Byung-chul was not content with a small, regional trading operation. He harbored larger visions. He wanted to build something that could stand the test of time. Then, the winds of war swept across the Korean peninsula. The devastation of the Korean War left cities and industries in ruins. Many companies shuttered, unable to withstand the hardship. But Lee's vision was unwavering. He shifted operations, salvaged what he could, and reinvested in the country's shattered infrastructure. Samsung became instrumental in supplying goods to fill the needs of a country desperate to rebuild, establishing relationships and gaining valuable experience, managing supply chains during crisis. With the war's end and the 1950s bringing a new era of hope and national ambition, Samsung diversified. Lee Byung-chul viewed the company not simply as a business, but as a vehicle to lift Korea through industrialization and innovation. He believed that a nation's prosperity was tied to its technological progress. Under this guiding principle, the company moved beyond trading and entered the realms of food processing, textiles, insurance, securities, and retail. By the 1950s, Samsung established a sugar refinery, the first of its kind in Korea, and a woolen mill, marking its entry into the world of manufacturing. Lee's approach to industrial expansion was pragmatic but ambitious. He identified sectors that were vital to Korea's growth, acquired the necessary knowledge and technology, and then fostered expertise through dedicated training and reinvestment. Samsung's belief in the value of people became a cornerstone of its culture. By the time the nation entered the 1960s, Samsung had evolved into a conglomerate, one of the earliest and most versatile conglomerates, or chaebols, in the country. Yet, Samsung's true transformation had only just begun. It was in the late 1960s, under the shadow of a rapidly advancing world economy, that Lee Byung-chul made a momentous decision. Samsung would enter the electronics business. At that time, Korea had no real electronics manufactories to speak of, and even the government was skeptical about local firms being able to compete with established Japanese and Western giants. Nevertheless, Lee was convinced the future belonged to those who could innovate in electronics and information technology. In 1969, Samsung Electronics was born. The company initially started by producing black and white televisions in partnership with Sanyo, a Japanese electronics firm. This partnership not only provided essential technical know-how, but also set the company on a path to develop its own capabilities. Samsung soon moved into manufacturing refrigerators, washing machines, and air conditioners. Its philosophy was simple: absorb, improve, and innovate. But the journey was not easy. Korean electronics manufacturing was in its infancy. Equipment and materials were largely imported, and the workforce needed extensive training. Early products struggled with quality, but Lee Byung-chul adopted a long-term vision, reinvesting profits, focusing fiercely on research and development, and cultivating a company culture that embraced both discipline and flexibility. As Samsung grew, so too did its impact. By the 1970s, South Korea was emerging as a manufacturing powerhouse. In 1974, Samsung made a bold move into semiconductors, acquiring a near-bankrupt company called Korea Semiconductor. At the time, the semiconductor industry was seen as a high-risk venture, requiring immense capital and years of research without the guarantee of success. Lee was not deterred. He poured resources into building clean rooms and research labs, betting the future of the company on the conviction that memory chips would soon become the cornerstone of the digital era. This proved to be a turning point. With tireless investment and relentless pursuit of technical excellence, Samsung's semiconductor division began to thrive. By the 1980s, Samsung was not only a leader in memory chip production, but had also gained a reputation for quality and innovation. Personal computers and consumer electronics around the world increasingly relied on Samsung's components, quietly fueling technological progress with Korean expertise. Meanwhile, the philosophy of the company was also maturing. When Lee Byung-chul passed away in 1987, leadership passed to his son, Lee Kun-hee. Under the younger Lee, Samsung doubled down on one of the founding values: quality. In 1993, famously frustrated by what he considered a lack of excellence among Samsung's products, Lee Kun-hee gathered his top managers in Frankfurt, Germany, and delivered a legendary speech. He demanded sweeping reforms and challenged the company to change everything except your wife and children. The message was clear: Samsung must not only keep pace with global competition, but leap ahead by embracing new standards of quality, innovation, and design. The transformation that followed was profound. Samsung shifted focus from cheap mass production to higher-value products, superior designs, and better branding. Billions of dollars were funneled into research and development, facilities were upgraded, and a rigorous quality control culture permeated every level of the company. This period saw the launch of Samsung's first mobile phones and pioneering advancements in digital television, computer monitors, and flat-panel displays. The early 2000s ushered in a new era entirely. Riding on the wave of globalization, Samsung began to position itself as a leader in digital convergence. The company invested heavily in next-generation display technologies, first LCDs, then OLEDs, and became a household name in consumer electronics. With the release of the Galaxy smartphone series, Samsung shook up the mobile phone industry, challenging even the dominance of Apple. No longer simply a supplier or assembler, Samsung had become an innovator at the forefront of everything from smartphones and smart TVs to home appliances, chip fabrication, and now even biotechnology and artificial intelligence. The company employs hundreds of thousands of people worldwide and is responsible for nearly a fifth of South Korea's exports. Its influence extends far beyond products. Samsung's research drives advancements in medical devices, display technology, renewable energy, and more. But behind the astounding rise lies the principle that has guided Samsung since those first days in a small trading office. Relentless adaptation. Through war, division, and global competition, the company never stayed still. It has reinvented itself and its products countless times, sometimes prompted by crisis, other times by sheer ambition. Yet, if one peers closely behind the storied history and gleaming corporate towers, the essence of Samsung's creation story remains. A vision born from resilience, nurtured by a belief in people and progress, and guided by a founder who looked beyond the present to imagine what Korea and perhaps the world might need in the decades yet to come. Today, Samsung's three-starred name evokes images of innovation and quality across continents. But the secret to its enduring success lies in its origins, a persistent willingness to learn, adapt, and risk everything for the promise of something greater. From dried fish in a war-torn country to semiconductors powering the digital world, Samsung's journey reminds us that true greatness is not simply born, but built day by day, challenge by challenge, one visionary leap at a time.